In this video, we're just going to have a look at the comparison between the approaches to building grids using Piotnet Grid and WP Gridbuilder. And then we'll also have a look at how to implement those grids and also how to implement a filtering system. So what we have on the website at the moment is as follows. We have a standard install using the latest theme from WordPress, and then we just have some demo content that we've included in the website. So nothing else has been done. Right, so one of the things that I'd like to do before we get started then is just get rid of this picture at the top of the screen. So we'll just head over into WordPress to their new site editor, and what I'm going to do then is let that load up, and once that's loaded we'll select the image and we'll just remove the image, and that's just so that we can move the posts up a little bit and make it a bit easier. Then we'll save that, and that's it. So with that done, let's head over to the posts, and you'll see that we have some pretty standard posts, and at the moment they're all in one category. So what we're going to do is just head on then over to the different builders. Right, so we'll have a look at the Piatnet Grid first. So when we load up the Piatnet Grid, you'll see that we have the facility to create cards, grids, facets. We can build archive templates. We can also import some styles. And then they also offer a useful analytics option, which will then just show you what's been going on your site. But for us to get started then, what we'll do then is we're going to have a look at first building a card. So the card fits into the grid, the facets apply the filtering, and once you've pretty much built your card and your grid layout, added some facets, you're pretty much ready to include that on the website. If we have a look at the Gridbuilder interface quickly, what you'll notice is it's completely different. And here we create our cards, the grids, and the various facets. So we're just going to have a look now and see exactly how different the two systems are. So let's head over here then to Piatnet Grid, and the first thing I'm going to do is make a card. So when you build a card in Piatnet Grid, you'll see that you have the option then to edit with Piatnet Grid. So we're just going to call this the first card. We'll publish that, and then we'll head over to edit with Piatnet Grid. And the approach from Piotnet, this is where we'll be designing our widget. And what you'll see here is you have a set of tools, sections, text, buttons, term lists, images, gallery, video, icons, product badge, add to wish list, a quick view, a product rating, variation swatches, add to cart, shortcode, and icon list. So you'll see some of these are very much product specific, and then you'll see that others are really just going to be applicable for creating a quick layout for something to do with a normal post. So to get started then, pretty much a standard procedure. The first thing, create a section. So we just drag that across onto the page, and you'll see now that we have the section, and here it'll ask us what we want to do with that section. It'll also ask us the content width. So we're just going to leave that boxed for now, and we'll just add some elements. So what we'll do is we'll add an image. So we'll just drag an image across, and you'll see that once we've dragged that image across, it starts to ask us some questions. So we can either choose to upload an image, or we can have a look at some image dynamic data, and that would mean getting the featured image. And you'll see here that you can include custom fields, the author profile picture if this was being built for authors. So you'll see you have a couple of options available straight out the blocks. We're just going to go with the featured image. You can also select a size, as this is going to be in a grid size. I think I'm just going to go for a medium size. And what you can also do now is choose the aspect ratio. So we're not going to look at that right now. We're just going to go with the standard images as they are, but you can then create your own image ratios, and we'll have a look at that later perhaps. And then you can add a link. So I'm going to add a custom URL, and that link URL will be to the post. So there we've created the post URL. The target will be self. We won't look at a caption. We can make it set it up for lazy loading just to help the page load a bit faster. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some text. So below that, we're going to add some text. So we'll add some text. And now you'll see as you start adding items, you might want to have a look at some kind of a list view or a tree view so you can see where you've added your elements, make sure they're in the right place. And that you can do by simply clicking on this button over here called the navigator. And then on the right hand side you can see that I have a section. Inside the section is a column. I have an image, and I've just added some text. And you'll notice that once I've selected text, the items on the left change, and you'll see even though there's no text selected, I can now start looking at the text that I want. So I'm going to include the post title. I am going to give that link a URL to the post, and we'll call the target self. And now you'll see that we have the post title and a length of 0. Now that length on 0 means that the entire post title will be pulled through. Alternatively, we could set a limit, and that would limit the length of the title. What we might also want to do is just have a look at editing some of the spacing. So we head over then to the advanced section. We go to margin and padding, and you can set different margins and paddings for different screen sizes. And what we're going to do is just update some padding, and we'll make that 10 pixels all round, and you'll see that that is updated there, and we'll leave our margins at 0. So we're just going to look at some padding, and you'll notice that the change has been applied. What we can also do now is look at our typography, and we might want to change the font weight, so maybe a little bit bolder. So let's have a look perhaps at just 500. We might also want to align that in the center, and there we have our title aligned in the center. And I'm going to add some more text, and the text that I'm going to add now is going to be related to an excerpt. So we'll put a post excerpt in, and now you'll see that the length has been limited to 50. If you want to change that, quite easily head in, change that to 30 perhaps. And of course we don't want to make that an H2 size. We're just going to go with a standard paragraph. We'll have a look at some spacing. So we'll just do some margin. So maybe what we want to do, maybe no margin. And on padding, let's make that 15 pixels. So there we have our text. We have an excerpt. If we want to add a link to the excerpt, we can do that as well. So we head then over to settings, and once again we can simply select the post URL as the link, and the target is self, and we can now save that. So there we've created our first card, and what I'm going to do now is just have a look. We'll start off here with the section, and just to recap then, we're looking at a boxed item. We haven't set a width for this item, and this is not going to be visible in the search results section. We can say collapse the section. We're not going to have a look at collapsing the section in any way, and we're not going to be looking at any auto scrolling effects. So that's what we're going to have a look at here, and we've saved. We're going to head back to WordPress, and then what I'm going to do is just quickly integrate that into the grid. And so now we'll add the grid. So first grid, we'll publish that. And then what we'll do is we'll edit that with Piatnet Grid. Right, so there's our grid loaded, and now we can add our grid. So what I'm going to do, I always like to add a section first, and then in that section I'm going to add my grid. So let me just grab that grid. Right, so now we've added our grid, and now we're going to answer a couple of questions here about the grid. And there's no card selected, so it's just a pretty standard look at the moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is it has selected the first card template, and we're also going to then just look at post product custom post type, and we'll just look at the current query. Post type will be posts. Post per page, we'll leave that at, let's make that 12. So there we have a few basic settings. Here in the layout, we're going to set the number of columns. So I'm going to set that to 3 columns. And the column gap, we'll just set that to 20 pixels. And the row gap, we'll set that to 20 pixels as well. So we're going to set that. Right, so that's pretty much how we've set that. Then I'm going to save that. And we can head back to WordPress. If I wanted to implement this now, I can head over to the website. So I'm going to head over to the website in the front end. And then what I'm going to do is edit site. Once that's loaded, I'm now going to add the Piatnet Grid. So what I'm going to do is just open up my tree view and head over to the website itself. And what I can do now is add my grid. So we'll just scroll down, and so here we have the grid that we created. So you'll see there, grid Piotnet, select a grid, we'll make it the first grid, and I'm going to save that. And now we'll head over to the front end of the website, and you'll notice that with the new builder in WordPress, there's no quick way to get to the front end that I know of. So what we need to do is head back to the dashboard, and then from the dashboard head over to the front end, and we'll scroll down, and there you'll see that there's the grid that we built, and we can see what it looks like, and immediately we can see there are a couple of things that we'd like to change. So to change them, we can then head over into Piatnet Grid, and what we also need to do is just adjust the width here inside of WordPress. So we'll edit the site, and what we'll also do then is just open up the card. So we'll open up the card, and we're just going to make a couple of changes. So one of the things that we do need to do is change the size of that font. For the H2 setting, it's a little bit big, so we can head over here into our typography, and we can set the size of the font down to maybe a more acceptable level, and we can save that. The next thing that we want to do is just adjust the width of that area. So what I'm going to do is here, now you can see here there's not much that I can do in terms of the width. So what I have to do is I have to head over here. There's the grid, so I'm just going to choose that pagination, because what I'd like to do is add a row. So let's add a row. It's either a row or a column, and then okay, let's not add that. Let's add the column. So we'll add the columns, and we're just going to add one column. So one column will be added, and then what we're going to do is move our grid into that area. So there we've moved it into the column. Let's just have a look at that. And then what we can do here is we can make that max width 1000. So now we have adjusted it to be nice and wide. We'll save that. And then just to save a little bit of time, we'll open that there. And when we scroll down now, you'll see that the changes that we made have taken effect. There's no teaser text, but you can already see that our posts are looking a little bit better. And if we wanted to make another update, maybe drop that font size a little bit more, we could maybe drop that down to 20. What we can also do is under the typography, under text decoration, we can just make that none. Save. And now when we have a look at our posts, you'll see that now the post, the underline effect is still there, and that might be linked to the A tag, which is to do with the link. So, right, but we have set the text decoration to none, and it's now appearing just because it is a link on the website. And as far as I can tell, there's no way to remove that, and we might just need to add some custom CSS. So what we can do now is also, if we wanted to change the typography, we could do that from here as well, but I'm not going to mess with that. That was just to show you how you can create your card and then quickly implement on the website. So that was Piatnet Grid. Let's have a quick look now at the dashboard here in Gridbuilder, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is head over to cards, and I'm now going to create a card. I'm not going to look at any pre-installed. So, and immediately you'll see it's a completely different layout, and you can also choose where this card is going to be used. So let's say it's going to be in a nice Metro justified layout similar to the one that we just saw, and you'll see that if we do that, I can't add any content below that blue block. If we do the masonry layout, you'll see that I can. So in order for us to compare apples with apples, we're going to do something like this. And now what we want to do is add some elements to our card. So they're called blocks. So let's add a title, and you'll see when you hit the plus sign, the item is immediately loaded onto the grid, and you just drag it down to where you'd like it. The post title is there. Now what we can do is we can adjust the appearance. So you have some different options available to you, sizing, spacing, and what we're going to do is maybe just look at the font, and we're going to look at the font alignment. We'll make that in the center. We'll drop that down to 600. We'll just leave it on the default font family. Font size, we'll leave that as it is. And of course, it's already named title. So we know that we've already dragged the title across onto that area. The next thing that I'm going to do is just drop some excerpt on the page. So there's the excerpt. Well, that's just some teaser text. Every time you click on something, this menu opens. So you just need to move that out the way. And what I'm going to do then is just drop in that text. And of course, the title we haven't set to any particular tag. So we'll make that an H2. And then the text here, we just make a paragraph. And what I'm going to do then is just look at the spacing, and we'll give that a spacing of 15 pixels, and we'll do that all around. So 15 pixels and then 15 pixels. And what we'll do on the title is we'll just give that a padding at the top of 15, and that'll just give it some space from the image area. And then we'll have a look at the image area. Now, one of the things that you can do here with this layout is you can adjust this to a 3D view, and then you can see what it is that you're looking at. So let's just do that again, and you'll see that we have the media holder, the media thumbnail, the overlay, and the media content. So let's just have a look at the media thumbnail, because that's what we're after. And on click, redirect to, and that'll go to the single post page. Nothing else to do there. Then we'll have a look at the post title, and we'll add an action, and we'll say open link, and that will also then be to the single post page, and we'll even link the excerpt, and we'll also just leave it as standard. So there we have a nice quick way of adding the items. What you can also do is drop something on top of the image if that's what you wanted to do. Then we're going to save those changes, and now what we're going to do is head over to our grid. So we'll just go to our grid, and we'll create a grid, and let's just call this grid folder 1. And we're not going to add any custom classes or anything else. And then what we need to do is have a look at the grid layout. So we've said it's going to be a masonry layout. And what we're going to do is we just want to do 3 columns, no more, and then it'll drop down on mobile. Or we could also have a look at a metro layout. And we're not going to look at a full width. We're just going to leave everything as standard. Then we're going to have a look at the grid builder. Now, this is where you can build the layout for the for your grid on the front end. So then we have the card style. So the default card here. So now we've got to remember what we called it, or we can hit the browse button, and there's our card. So we'll select the new card, and immediately we get told that the masonry card is not compatible with the current grid layout. So we need to change that. So we're going to head back to the grid layout, and we'll change that to masonry. It'll work on masonry, and it won't work on justified. So we're in for a masonry layout. Here in the grid builder, we can add some other items, but we're just looking at adding our particular card, and we've set the number of items in the width. Then we can look at a quick preview here, and you'll see that there we have our masonry view. What we also want to do is maybe look at some spacing. So let's have a look. Grid layout. What we'll also do, we'll just fit that into rows and then have a preview, and now you'll see that we have a nice ordered row of posts. The other thing that we need to check now is the spacing. So let's just have a look. Let's make that 20, And let's just have a preview and see what that does. So there you can see we have the spacing then for the grid, and that's how we set that up. Right, so what we can also do here is have a quick look at the mobile view, tablet views, or leave it on the desktop view. So that's what we have now, and I think that looks fine. We'll save the changes. And now what we need to do is just have a look to see how we implement that on the front end. So once again, we're going to go back to the editor, and I'm just going to refresh that because we've made some changes. And what I'm also going to do now is just remove this query loop, which is the default loop here from WordPress. And well, that wasn't a good idea because that also deleted our Piatnet grid loop. So what I need to do is just remove that. Right, so this is actually going to change things a little bit. And then what we're going to do is just change that. We're going to get rid of that. Okay, we'll save that. Right, so now when we have a look at the page, there we go. You'll see now that the WordPress default grid is gone. And we just have the Piatnet grid that we created. Now what we're going to do is drop in the grid that we just created with Gridbuilder. So we'll follow a similar procedure. So let's add a column so we can adjust the width as well. So we'll add a column and we'll make that one column width. And to just set the width of that, then we head back to the top level. And it seems to have different settings. Okay, well, works different on both. Right, then we're going to add in the grid builder. So let's go to, no, let's go WP. No, so nothing coming up there. So there's another way of doing that. So if we head over to grids, you'll see that there is a short code here that we can copy. We'll just head over here. And what I'm going to do now is add a short code. Right. And that will then be the grid. We'll save that. And if I head back over here now, that grid should be visible. So there's the Piotnet grid, and there's the grid that is coming through from Gridbuilder, and you'll see the Gridbuilder has this blue overlay, and we can go and adjust that and change that. So let me head back. Let me just go back here, and what I'm going to do is Builder, and what I'm going to do is just add a column. Okay, I was hoping just to line it up so that it was the same width. Columns. Right. And then if we have a look on the right hand side, we might be lucky where we can set the number of columns. So here with columns, there we go. We'll make that one column. So that was where we added then the two. So now when I go and have a look, you'll see that they both fill the same amount of space on the page. That width, and okay, that's completely disappeared. So don't ask me why. Right, so I'm gonna see if there is a way to add the I'm gonna add grid. It's really a pity that you can't add the grid in the same way that we did with Piotnet, where there isn't a native content element. And as you can see, the grid that we did have is now gone. So I'm just going to add that in again. Columns, we're going to say one column, and here we're going to add, let's try that again. So now we have different grid elements, and you'll see that this is the grid for WP Gridbuilder, and here we can select our grid and save that. Right, and now when we have a look on the front end, you'll see that indeed we do have the two grids back. And what I'm going to do is head over here to columns. For some reason, when we selected this column, we had the option to set the width, max width to 1000 pixels. That's not working anymore. So we now have the two grids at two different widths. If I add that into the same space, okay, well, be that as it may, that's just how it is now. They're at different widths. But more about the different ways to build. So we want to get rid of that blue. So if we want to get rid of that blue, we'll go over to our card and we will simply edit the card. So we can just select the card. And now what we can do is we can select the area, and you'll remember that when you select, it shows the different areas in that layout. So what we want to do is actually edit the media overlay. So we'll head over to appearance and we'll change the color. So let's see if it means changing the background color. We don't want any color actually. So there we go. We want it to be clear. When we see clear, it goes back to blue, and we get the blue on the front end of the website. And I'm going to scroll the slider then all the way down. We'll leave it. Let's save the changes and just see what that does. So refresh. Alright, so now we have no image. So that didn't work. So clear sets it to blue. Visibility none. Opacity is 0. Let's have a look. Okay, now we have the full images inside. So that's pretty much how you can set that. So it's really pretty simple to set up the whole process. And now you'll see that there's no link on the image. So if we wanted to adjust that, then once again we can use this as a reference. And let's say the media holder, or let's edit the media thumbnail. And what we'll do is we'll head over to action, and we have set an action and that's not working. So maybe what we need to do is, I don't know if we need to do that on the media overlay. Let's have a look. Single post, save the changes, and then head over to the website, refresh. And now you'll see that there is a link available on those. And if we click on it, then the post does open. What we can also do now, just for comparison purposes, is I'm going to head over here back to my Piatnet Grid. And what I'll do is I'm going to change the layout. Let's just have a look here. Right. So we need to change the layout of our grid. So we'll head back to WordPress. And what we'll do is we'll go over to our grids. And when we look at the grid now, we'll change the width of that grid. So here in the grid view, we'll just choose our navigator, head over to section. And what we want to do is change the width. So we'll change the content from boxed to full width. We'll save that. And now when we refresh, you'll see that we have a full width content element. And we also went for a smaller image. So I'm going to adjust that image. Now what I can do is, because I click on the card here, I can simply then edit this card template straight away. It will then open up that card template for me. I don't have to navigate out in any way. I can select the image and we set a medium. So let's go for a large image, save that. And of course, now when we have a look at it, you'll see that we have the larger image with each of those post items. And maybe what we want to do now is just check where that excerpt got to. So here we have our card. Now we did ask for the excerpt to be pulled in. If there wasn't an excerpt, then maybe what we need to do is have a look at the post content. And then I'm going to remove the excerpt. May just be that there isn't anything. And we'll make that 30, save. And when we refresh now, the content will be pulled in as the post excerpt. And you'll see that it's the grids are pretty similar, slightly different approach to the alignment. So there you can see. There we have it. And what I'm going to do now is just add a quick search facet to each of those. So what we do here is back to WordPress there. And here we're just going to get out of the different settings. And now what I'm going to do is head over to facets. And I'll just create the facet. Right, so here we're going to add, it'll be a search. So we'll publish. And then it will be edit with Piatnet Grid. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do a facet. So you'll see you'll drag over the facet into your editing area, and then it'll ask you what kind of facet you want. So it's not going to be it will be a filter facet, and the filter type is going to be a search. And we're not going to edit anything else. And the placeholder here will be search, and I'm going to save that. Now, what I can do is I can actually head back to the editor, and we'll just refresh the page. Right, with the page refreshed, let's go back here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a facet. Interestingly enough, nothing will come up there, but if I head over here and I select an element and I say insert after, and I'll type facet, then you'll see. Now I know that the top facet is the one for Piatnet Grid. So select a facet, it'll be search, and it says which grid, apply to the first grid. I'm going to go to my layout here, and I'm just going to move that facet above. So we'll save that. And now when I refresh, you'll see that we now have the search bar here, and let's see, I'll just use the word have, and you'll see immediately we have some filtering. And just to choose something more unique, and you'll see there's no need to push any apply button. The moment you punch it in, the posts are filtered, and filtered really nice and quickly. And if I remove the search term, then all the posts are immediately loaded up again. And you'll also see here that the temporary image has been installed here, even though not so on Gridbuilder. Right, so that's just a very quick way then to show you how to implement a facet for instant search, and we'll do the same thing now for our WP Grid Builder. So I'm going to head over to all facets, and we'll create a facet, and it'll be let's just make that search. I'm not going to give it a title. We don't want that appearing on the front end. Then we'll go over to behavior. It's filter. That's correct. Then we're going to have a look at a search field, and the search placeholder will be search. And let's do instant search. Right, and we'll save the changes. And now what I'm going to do is pretty much the same. I'm going to head back to the front end. I'm going to refresh. And now what I'm going to do is add that facet here. So I select the grid block, and this time I'll just say a second here, insert before, and facet. Now that's the facet. So we select the facet. It'll be the search facet. It'll select a grid builder 1, and save. So you'll see that they work in very similar ways, although the layouts are slightly different. And what that's saved, I'm going to refresh. And then I'll scroll down here, and you'll see there we have the search. And I'll just change that to have, and you'll see that the filtering happens pretty quickly as well. And maybe I want to just do something labore and put that in, and that's how quickly that worked. And if I do the same thing here, you'll see also pretty quick. So without a lot of content, the speeds are pretty equal. You'll see that it was quite easy then to make similar layouts. The only thing that we need to remove is this underline on the links, and that might have something to do with the theme. There's no style applied by Piotnet. So let's just have a look at the mobile view. To do that, let's just inspect here quickly and look at the mobile view. So you'll see that's how we have it there, and that's the layout view that we have for Gridbuilder. Now you can adjust that. So if I wanted to change that for Gridbuilder, let's go to Gridbuilder here. I'm going to go back to my grids, and what we'll do then is we're just going to change that to 1. So when it comes to the grid layout, then what we'll do is we'll just knock that down to 1. We can preview that here. So we can see here that it'll be 1 on mobile view, and we'll save the changes, head over, refresh, and when we scroll down, you'll see that it's just 1 across. And if we look at the filtering here again, so I'm just going to go to default post listing, and then what I'll do over here is the same thing, just remove the search term, and we are back to the default search. So slightly different layout here now, as you can see. I'm not sure why the filtering order is different. That might be to do with something else. But you get the idea. It's really quick. The Piatnet hasn't defaulted back to the default listing. It's actually stuck on something else here. So let's just try echo. So we get the echo, and here we get the echo. So 2 posts coming up against the Piatnet 1. And if I remove the search term, we go back to the default items. And here, if I remove the echo, we don't have as many items coming up. So it looks like the filtering here on Piatnet has got stuck and has excluded a number of terms. Let's try something else. So pay brings up quite a lot, and pay here will bring up quite a only 2, and here pay brings up quite a few. So it does look like there's a bit of confusion now in the filtering that's going on, and I'm not sure if that's because we have both plugins installed and running at the same time. So let me refresh the page. That was still on Labore, and I think where the issue will be coming in is that when we type in a search term, you'll see that we have a change in the URL, and we'll just take that away, so that will go back to the standard. And when we do something in the search term here, Labore, you'll see that we have it in the top as well. And what's happening now, of course, is there's quite a bit of confusion because we have both plugins running. So what we could do, one of the things that we can do here in the filter is disable adding the parameters to the URL. So if we were to do that in Piatnet Grid, and we'll head over here and refresh the page. So let's just take that out. So that will simplify the filter. So now if I do a search here for Labore, it still works as normal. And I do that here. Now you'll just see that the search is for Labore only. And if I was to remove that, we're back to the default layout as it should be. And the same here, back to the default layout. So that's just one way to handle that little bit of conflict. But you can see that both plugins handle the creating of cards quite easily, although in a slightly different way, and both also handle the filtering quite easily. But let's just have a quick look if we wanted to do a layout that was horizontal. So to do that, then I'm going to head over here to Piotnet, and what I'm going to do is create a new card and make that a horizontal card. So in this case, I'm now going to just create a new card, and we'll call it the second card. And I didn't publish that, so let me publish that first. And then we'll go edit with Piatnet Grid. And so now if I wanted to make a card where I had an image on the left and the text on the right, works in a slightly different way between the two builders. So the first thing I'm going to do here then is just open up that navigator view. You can also move this around. So just so you know, it doesn't have to be in the top right hand corner. Right, then the first thing I'm going to do, of course, here is then add an image. So we'll go back here to image. And that image will be the featured image. And of course, I don't want it so big. So this time I'm going to go for the medium. And what I'm going to do then under advanced is I'm just going to give this a width. Then let's make it 30%. So you'll see now that it's a lot smaller. Then I'm going to add some text. So the first bit of text I'll add will be the title. So let's add that there. And we'll leave that as an H2. And the content there will be the post title. And now what I'm going to do is I want to move it up next to that. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the width then to, let's make that 70%. And you'll see that it automatically just pops up there. And if I want to now, margins and paddings, and I might want to do just 15 pixels all around. And of course, then I don't really want that much margin. We'll pop that up there, and under typography, I know that I need to change the size, and I'm just going to drop that down quite a lot there. And then I'll add my next bit of text. Try that again. Now you'll see here that what I can do to make it a bit easier for the layout is I can actually add a section. Right, so there's my section, and what I'm going to do is pull that image into the section. Okay, let's do that again. So I'm going to move that into the section, and now what I'm going to do inside that section, I'm going to add another section. Okay, now I know that that needs to be 70% in width. So we'll just change that. Okay, so now it's starting to get a little bit tricky because what we were trying to do is just add. So we have the column. Right, so you can see now that things are getting a little bit interesting here. So we have image and text, and then we have the next section. Now this section, we wanted to make that 70%. So here, the width, we'll make that 70%. And then what I'm going to do is drag that content into that section. So now you'll see that I have the title there, and now what I'm going to do is take this content area here, this text, and here we're going to pull in some content, and we're going to make that 30, and then we're going to add, we'll make that a paragraph, and we'll put some margin and padding. So margin, we'll do 0, and padding, let's make that 20. And I'm just going to move this a bit so you can see you've got these blue indicator blocks, and I'm just going to drag that and drop that in there. So now I have a horizontal layout for my grid, and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to add any links or anything. I'm just going to save that, and then I can head over to WordPress Designer. I can refresh that. So there we have the first grid still. So what I'm going to do now is just head over to my grid. And what I'm going to do is change the card that is visible in my grid. So I go to my grid, and I'm going to edit that. Right, so here's the grid. And what I'm going to do now is just change the card to the second card. And of course, the other thing I need to do is change the layout. So with the layout now, I just want to make that, columns, one column. So there we have the horizontal view, and I'm going to save that. And then when we have a look at the website, you'll see now that my layout has changed to the horizontal view, and that actually looks pretty acceptable. Yeah, that's pretty good going. And now what I'm going to do is do the same thing here with the grid builder. So let's head over to our cards, and what I'm going to do is make a new card. So let's create card, and we'll just call this one, let's call it horizontal. And now you'll see that we have an option here to click horizontal, and immediately you can see that we have the horizontal area. Here I can, let's make that 30% as well. Okay. So that's 30%, and immediately that is the correct width. Now what I'm going to do is just add some blocks. So the title, it's dropping it here on top of the image, but I'm going to move it across. What I also want to do is, no, I don't want to do that. I want to delete that item. I want it to go to the post title, and I want it to go to appearance and spacing, and we just want to do 15 pixels all around. Right, so there we have that done, and the next thing I'm going to do is add the next block. With this one, sometimes I forget, you just click. Let me just delete the items that I don't want. Right, so now we can add the excerpt, and you'll see that I can drop it there. I don't have to drop it in that drop area. If I want it to be just underneath the title, we'll give that a span, and then under the appearance, we're just going to give that some spacing, and we're going to make that also 15. So with that done, just a quick grid. What we need to do is adjust the image. So let's just save our changes, and what I can do is preview that, and you'll see it just shows me what that's going to look like. We'll save the changes. I'm going to head over to my grid, grid builder, and now what I'm going to do is go to my grid layout, and when it asks me the card styles, I'm now just going to browse, and you'll see now I can just simply select that card, and I'll just select that card as well. So you'll see very nice and easy. Save that, head over to the website, refresh, and when we scroll down, you'll now see that we have the layout. Obviously, though, we don't want it to be 3 across. We'd rather just have it the 1 across. So let's go back to our grids, and what we're going to do then in our grid builder, when we looked at the styles, you'll remember that in grid layout we could set the number of columns, and we're just going to set that all to 1 column across, and we'll save the changes. And now when we have a look, you'll see that we just have the 1 card, right? And we have that blue again, so let's remove that blue. So to do that, we'll head back to the cards, and we'll just enter that one, edit it, so we can just click on horizontal. And now what I can do is go to my image. Right, now you'll remember in the last card we were able to get that 3D view of the area, and we can do that there, doing that. Now I know that it's the overlay, so I'm going to click on the overlay, and on the appearance then we're going to have a look at background and select color. We're going to hit clear, Let's see if that does the trick. Save the changes. Scroll down, and there you can see we have our horizontal grid layout. We still have that width issue. That's more to do with the layout within WordPress than it is to do with the plugin. Piotnet Grid is in a boxed mode, and under the facets here, we haven't selected any kind of mode, but that's not that we can set. So if I go into the grid here, so let's go to grids, Gridbuilder, and I go to the layout, you'll see that we haven't selected the full width, but that the width in fact has been taken to the maximum. I'm not sure where we would be able to adjust that here in the back end, but that will take it looks like it's going to take the width of the content on the website. So it's more about the fact that this is full width. So what I'm going to do then is just set that to 1000 pixels, the column width. And when we refresh the page now, you'll see they're both full that space. No, not going to work that way. Column settings width. It is the width is set to 1000, but now it's aligning everything to the left. Let's go to the next column setting. Right, well, that's just something to do with the way that WordPress handles the width on the page. So we've set a width of 1000 pixels, but there's no way here where we can determine where that fits on the page. Maybe what I'm going to do then is just try something quickly. Let's add a row. And let's see. I'm going to add a row here. And then what I'm going to do is change that row to the center. And that's included that in the header. So let me drag that out. So let's just have a look there. There's the row, there's the columns. So what we can do is just move it here in the navigator view. Not that easy to use. Trying to see if I can get the column moved into the row, but that's not working. So I guess that's not something that can be done. So here in the columns view, I've tried to arrange this into the center. That's also not working. And here in the row view, align that in the middle. Here we've said justify everything in the center. Let's do that. And maybe what we can do now is we can drag the individual elements. And that's going to do something different. So anyway, look, this is just messing around. The new, it's really not that easy yet to build stuff in the new layout. And then if I select the element, the grid, Right, and if we save that, I'm not sure what we're going to get on the front end, and I refresh. There we go, that appears in the center, and the grid builder, not so much. Yeah, so I think this is more to do with the layout options available within WordPress, and less when it comes to what's available inside the plugin. So yeah, I think it was just better when it wasn't in anything. So we'll just pull it out. Right, we'll save that. Yeah. So that's just how you can build different grids, and just comparing them between the two builders, and of course the filtering also works. So here we can go we have, and you'll see that the we haves are filtered, and the same thing here under search, we have, and also filtered nice and quickly. Well, that's just a quick intro to show you the difference in the approach to building grids with Piotnet and with Gridbuilder, and both of them do have a lot more advanced features that you might want to have a look into. So both are pretty good options for building grids. So just hope you enjoyed that video, and thank you for watching.